Hey everyone, it's Richard Metalfan here, bringing you guys a brand new 2021 album review. And today we're going to be talking about a band that, well, I know some people probably give me shit for, probably not. And I never really talked really about this band really on my channel. And as you can see below the title, we're going to be looking into the new album from the band Volumes entitled Happier, which is out now through Fearless Records. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Volumes, they're a kind of a metalcore band based out of Los Angeles, California. These guys have been around since 2009, and I discovered Volumes about 5 something years ago. And that these guys been putting out their albums since their first album, which hard to believe is now 10 years old this year, or Via, which I think was a pretty good debut, which had some of my favorite songs, especially Wormholes, is still one of the best of Volume songs. And then their second album, which came out called the No Sleep, which I thought was a really good album, and it had one of my favorite songs, Erase. And I think it was around the time when Volumes started to add clean vocals to their sound. It was mostly from Michael Barr, but it wasn't until 2015 when Michael Barr had left the band, and then they got Mike Terry, formerly of Bury Your Dead, filling in on the vocals in 2016. And they've been touring for a couple of years, and then they put out their last album, which came out in 2017, which was entitled Different Animals. I thought that was a pretty good album. It was kind of different compared to what we heard from Baya and No Sleep. But then things changed in a couple of years when Michael Barr had rejoined the band, and the Farias brothers, there's Gus and Diego left. And then they got Michael Barr back, and now he's doing vocals with Mike Terry. And I just think that both their voices sound great. And I was kind of bummed that it was around the time in 2020 last year, their Diego Ferris, their former lead guitarist, had passed away, which was really a shame. And it's really sad. So on this album, they had a guy named, I believe Max Shad, who's played guitars on this album, and he does a really great job filling in the guitars. Like pretty much filling in what Diego would have wanted. And let's just talk about like the production is pretty great. Like everything's leveled. Like there's some good moments where it's quiet, and there's some moments where it's loud and heavy. One thing to note is like the vocals, like Mike Terry and Michael Barr's vocals really just complement each other. Those two go really hand in hand with sort of like the screaming and both the clean vocals. Like both their vocals are really great, and they put a lot of like soul and like just oomph to the sound of Volumes. The bass on this album is pretty audible. Rod Sodani's bass is really heard well in the mix. And drumming wise, Nick Urshish, I probably butchered his last name, but Nick does a great job on the drums. So without further ado, let's dive into this album track by track. Now, starting things off is FBX. Now, this is a pretty solid start to the album. This is pretty much like very much like a hardcore song with screams, as like dirty guitarists that you notice right off the bat for this like new sound of Volumes, or sort of like this new beginning for the band, if you ask me. I think it's a good solid way to start off the album. Then we go on to Malevolent. Now this follows up with another great track with some great screams and a few like kind of like groovy guitar riffs at the end, which is really enjoyable for the song. Sorry, I can't even speak today. Next up is Ben, which is probably like my favorite song of the album, and this is the first song with some clean vocals, something I always loved from this band. And I just really love like the very calm and atmospheric moments, especially with Mike and Michael just going hand in hand with each other, especially in the chorus. Like they have like a lot of like power in the two voices, and their voices just really go hand in hand really well, and they just love the back and forth between the two. Then we move on to Get Enough. Now, Get Enough has some really killer screams with, of course, like the clean vocals to like balance it out. But I do notice there's a bit of a repetitive chorus right off the bat with even more repetitive guitar riffs that I don't typically notice in songs. But this one, I feel like really just sticks out for the both. And this is a song that I won't listen to as often, but once in a while, I'll check it out. Next up is Let Me Down. I can't even, it sounds a bit weird, but now this is a pretty solid song, especially thrown in the middle of the album's like track order. I think it's pretty solid. Good. Next song in the album is called Man on Fire. Now, in my opinion, the vocals really push the song forward. Musically, I feel like it sounds like it's about to burst a little bit. It pretty much has that edge where it becomes heavy, but it just never like fully blossoms. And I just think it walks like a fine line in here. And the drums just really help with that as well. It pretty much pumps the intensity, and when you feel like it's about to like just go very chaotic, it just stops. Next up is Waited, which I believe was like one of the first singles released from Happier here, and this pretty much changes up the album as like Michael and Mike just go with like a softer tone of the song, but it's like cool to hear with some like a hard guitar riffs and hard screams on such like a very soft sounding track, and it's really neat. Anyway, next up we get to See You Again. Now this is a really good chunky song with some great guitar riffs, great instrumental, and some screams. And then we move on to Into You, who hurt in parentheses. Now I feel like this song pretty much sums up like the whole album. It has very a heavy side to it, but also a very kind of like melodic and melancholic side. And I'm not sure where to think that where it dominates between the melodic and the heaviness. And it feels like you've heard like the heaviest song on here, while you also heard the most melodic at the same time. And the clean vocals are really amazing. And I feel like not with like the lyrics, but I feel like just the emotion just is really delivered as opposed to the lyrics on this song. And then moving on to Void. Now this is a pretty short song, but it's a great track that's pretty much just kept like the whole theme of the album. And then we close things out with the title track of the album, Happier. And I feel like it goes through a lot of different stages. It gets like quite into like the hard style, but it ends with like a beautiful clean finish. And it's a pretty long song for the average listener, but I think it's a great track to pretty end the album. Now overall, Happier by Volumes is a pretty good comeback. Pretty much a new start at the band, new lineup and everything. So I'm gonna give this album a score. I'm gonna give Happier by Volumes a solid 8 out of 10. So yeah, that's my review of the album, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about it, and I'll see you all in the next video. And as always, keep it metal.